Sounds good. Good to go? Yeah. All right, we're going to start the meeting at 6:32. And we're going to start with our roll call.
Darlene Warner, absent. Kathy McCarthy, absent. Chris Nettles, absent. Jake Strickler,
Here.
Joe Schneider,
Here.
and myself.
All right, we have our roll call done. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to just keep streamlining this. So the next order of business is approval of the agenda and minutes from last, I guess would be July?
Yes,
July.
July meeting.
All right. So yeah, can we get a motion to approve the agenda and minutes from July 17th? All right, looks like we have that passed. Next on our list is short announcements.
Good evening, Cobb. Margot Kambara. As you know all too well, last week marked the 10th anniversary of the Valley Fire. One positive outcome of the Valley Fire's devastation is an increase in disaster preparedness and community unity. Lake Area Planning Council's Wildfire Evacuation Analysis and Preparedness memo states, quote, "The Valley Fire highlighted the need for comprehensive wildfire preparedness and resilience measures and underscored the need to evacuate immediately," end quote. Building on Lake County's wildfire preparedness, Lake Area Planning Council welcomes public comment on its draft Wildfire Evacuation and Preparedness Plan. The plan sets standard evacuation protocols and procedures for relevant agencies. It will be used to analyze the risk assessments of existing transportation facilities to determine potential strengths or improve needs for vulnerable areas and populations. The draft plan is posted on Lake Area Planning Council's website, lakeapc.org. Using the radio alphabet, the website is lakealphapapacharlie.org. On the Lake Area Planning Council's landing page, click on the icon for the draft plan. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Stark, president of Mountain Lions Club. I would just like to take a moment to thank the CAC for a successful Cobbler Festival. I'd like to say we wrapped up and a thank you to the volunteers who really made it possible, cooked 2,275 servings. We wrapped up our season of bingo. We also had Mike Thompson here for a meet and greet with Mike Thompson. That was absolutely a total and unequivocal success. We had the 2 fire remembrances, and I went to the one in Middletown as well. I have to say, to the Cal Fire, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Then on October 18th, we have the Oktoberfest. So we have the brats. Last year we didn't buy the brats until two weeks before, and there were no brats in Northern California, so everybody got hot dogs. So we actually have real brats this year. Sauerkraut, German potato salad. You please get a ticket. Tickets are available. Next we have, of course, in the future we have Thanksgiving And the week after Thanksgiving, we have the Grover, parentheses, Pine, and Lion Club combination Friendsgiving, where the Grovers cook meals, the turkey and the dressing, and you bring a side, and we all sit here and break bread together. So we will be bringing more details about that, but that's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And then in the first weekend of December, we have the parent-teacher organization, Meet Santa. I know, it's hard, but yes, Meet Santa. It's a pancake feed, raffle, and whatnot. And I have to say, this morning we had the food pickup. Remember here, we have the food pickup on the first Wednesday and the third Thursday. And let me say, I get up at 5:30 and it is pitch black. So much for summer. It is officially over. So anyway, and then nothing until the crab feed in March, but we'll keep you up to date on that. Look at our website or look at our Facebook page. We're here to support the community, and we appreciate everything that this community gives back to us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Slate, and I hope I can do justice to Joan Moss. Maybe everybody knows by now she passed about 2 weeks ago, and I just had a couple of comments. She ran for supervisor, I think 2012, and I brought one of her campaign signs, and it brings back good memories. And she brings back a lot of good memories. Most of you know she was really active at supervisor meetings, active musically, just very involved, and I think of it, just a very spirited person. And I think one of my memories that means a lot to me is we were speaking one time, and she just said, "Thank you for being my friend." And I'll never forget that. And so I just wanted to say, oh, and Supervisor Pyska had some very nice and kind things to say about Joan at the meeting last week, and that's just want to pass that on.
Just to take a second here, can everybody stand? We'll give a moment of silence for Joan. She was a huge component of our community. Thank you.
Okay, any other short announcements? No, looks like we'll move on to our public and board comment on non-agenda items.
Good evening, Cobb. Margot Kambara, Lake County General Plan Advisory Committee representative. At last week's Planning Commission meeting, Community Development Director Turner reported that updated drafts of the general plan and the local area plans are expected by the end of the year. Lake County Community Development is encouraging property owners to submit their requests for rezoning and other land use changes while the county updates the general plan and local area plans. Your council may wish to follow the example of Earth, Eastern Region Town Hall, and create a committee on land use. A land use committee can help an area council get a better understanding of proposed projects and land use changes within the council's borders. Earth's Land Use Committee will review projects within the town hall's boundaries, such as those requiring a major or minor use permit. For Cobb Advisory Council, one project that could have been reviewed by your Land Use Committee is the Bellwood Motel. Similarly, a Cobb Area Council Committee on Housing could also examine the county's housing plan and how it relates to the needs of area residents. A housing committee may help Cobb area residents fulfill their housing priorities. Either or both of these council committee suggestions may warrant discussion by your council. Thank you.
Any other comments on agenda items?
I know this wasn't part of your thing, but last meeting got canceled and we're just getting updates about the road.
The best person is probably not here,
Yeah,
Jessica, for that, but.
yeah, sorry, go on.
No, the Board of Supervisors approved the augmentation item that's supposed to start in October, is the paving of what was chip sealed.
Is there any update or any information online or nobody knows anything? Because they were supposed to give us an update last time.
Anything, go ahead.
I would call Public Works. Yeah, but like Mr. Duncan said, it was approved to pave all the double chip sealed roads. So, but you can call and clarify that. And
Tentatively in October.
Yeah, that was the timeline, so they had to get on the schedule for there's a lot involved with the asphalt plant and stuff.
so, good news. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll move on to what everyone's looking forward to. Mr. Miles Horton with Sonoma Clean Power is here to do a presentation. So take it away.
I'll try to fill in for Miles. I'm Jeff Cyphers. I'm the CEO.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's what you had. Thank you to the council, and I also want to thank Jessica Paiska for inviting me here tonight. This is our last advisory council in the rotation around the lake, and we were originally scheduled for last month, but I think there was a more pressing need, so that got canceled. So I just want to say tonight is a pretty quick introduction to one of the options that the supervisors and the two incorporated cities here at Lakeport and Clear Lake are thinking about. There's a much more detailed presentation coming on September 30th at the Board of Supervisors chambers in the evening, and the two cities will also be there with their councils that evening as well. And so if you're left after this 20-minute presentation saying, like, I have more questions, you can certainly ask them to the extent the council's got time tonight, but then also I encourage you to come to that meeting on the 30th as well. So really what's before you tonight is that the supervisors are asking a question, which is, should we give people a choice in where their electricity comes from? And this is a more narrow question than that might sound. Right now, PG&E chooses which power plants your power is produced from. And what's happened in the last 20 years is that California has given cities and counties more power to make those kinds of choices ourselves. And so what we did back in 2014, starting in Sonoma County, expanding to Mendocino, is something that the supervisors here and the two cities are asking us to consider offering in Lake County. And so I want to jump to who we are. We're a public agency, so SEP is composed of the cities and the two counties of Mendocino and Sonoma today. And we're organized as a joint powers authority, if you know what that is, but it's basically like a collection of cities and counties working together. And we're owned by our cities and our counties. And so we cannot charge a profit. We can't use tax dollars either. So we actually have to recoup all the money that that it costs us to produce electricity out of rates. And that's a good thing, because it means that if we enter into a high price contract and we go bust, there's no impact to the cities and the counties from that, because there's a firewall. So we could fail, but the cities and the counties don't get that liability. The flip side is, if the cities and counties wanted to help us, they can't. So there's actually a pretty strict wall there that says we got to make it or break it on our own. What we're set up to do is really try to compete with PG&E on electricity prices. We have a limited ability to do that because when you generate power, that's only about 1/3 the cost of electricity. About 2/3 is the cost of all the wires and the transformers and the substations and what we call the grid. That's about 2/3 of the price tag. So we can compete a little bit, but I'll show you later in a slide that the amount of savings we can deliver to customers is small. So I want to talk about why we're still, we think, valuable. We do build a lot of clean power projects. We've actually constructed well over $1 billion of new renewable energy already in the last decade. I'm really proud of that. And then this bullet could be overlooked, but we advocate for lower prices. We advocate for better policy in Sacramento. And before you say, yeah, sure, our wins in the last 11 years have actually cut power bills in Sonoma and Mendocino County alone by over $100 million. So we actually push back on PG&E cost increases, and we only win like 1 out of 10 cases. We lose most of the time, but when we win, it can be really big. So the advocacy is something I'm really proud of, and it's something that we work on. And I know CAL FIRE's in the room. Like, one of the things we're really proud of is trying to get the right kinds of fire protection onto the grid. And so a lot of our work on our team is to find the targeted, cost-effective undergrounding, not just any undergrounding. And so we now have like transmission experts on our staff who are helping us do that. The state of California to have to compete for your business. So, so that's a new choice. The key here is this section here, is that PG&E still maintains the grid. They still send out one power bill with all the electric charges on it, including ours. And they still make all the decisions about when to turn off your power for safety. So we don't fix that problem. That's their sole control, because it's their people whose lives are on the line, because they have to be touching those wires. So they have that sole control over the power grid. And so we're really just power generation. And so I want to be clear about that. So it's a limited role. So we're in this category of CCAs, or community choice aggregators. It's kind of a mouthful. These only began really following PG&E's first bankruptcy. So when anyone remember Enron scandal and Gray Davis losing his job? Okay, yeah. So remember that? That was the beginning of a lot of this crisis. It was the beginning of really high electric prices in California. Before that, we kind of had pretty average electric prices around here. And what happened is the state legislature saw what happened with Enron. It wasn't just Enron, that was just the poster child, but there were like 7 companies that were gaming things. And they wanted to have local government have more control over energy markets and more transparency. So they created this category called community choice aggregation, or CCA, and encouraged local governments to stand up power generation enterprises. And it took a while, because that was back in 2002 that happened. And it wasn't until 2010 that the first one got started. That was in Marin, California. The very, very first one started there. We were the second. And today there are 25 of us around California. We now produce about 3 times more power than PG&E produces. So we're collectively vastly larger than PG&E. And we're serving about 15 million Californians collectively, not just us, but our sister agencies around the state. And it began in the coastal areas, but it really moved. This is just showing Northern California, but this is also happening in Southern California. We really are seeing a really rapid increase in the Central Valley and the foothills now in interest. So we're now seeing a majority of the population in those regions actually adopting this as well. So this is taking off, and it's taking off because it's adding a local voice. And the real key reason is we don't really want all the decisions made in Sacramento and San Francisco. We want them made here where we live. So I wanted to just give you a little taste. We build really big stuff, like large-scale wind facilities. This is our facility in Livermore, California. This is a 46 megawatt wind farm that we constructed. And we also build really small scale stuff. This is a family dairy farm that actually they had to retire from dairy farming because it wasn't economic anymore to compete. So we're leasing their land to put a 1 megawatt solar array on it. So this is a pretty small solar array, and this is in Petaluma, California. And we really try to work across that spectrum of size and also technology. Some of what we can do all the time is really be supportive of the community. So one of the things I really like is we have a nonprofit electric vehicle incentive. So if you've got a nonprofit that's doing deliveries in particular or high demand driving, we offer up to $22,500 for a nonprofit to lower the purchase price of an electric van or truck. And what we love about that is that's pretty much the hard part. Once you own one of these, they're way cheaper to maintain and they're way cheaper to fuel. It's the first price that's the problem. And so, we've got a number of these out in the community, and it's one of the ways that we like seeing nonprofits really lower their operating expenses. We do a lot of work in schools too. So we try to add to scholarships, trade associations. We're a big sponsor of the Next Gen Trades Academy, which I understand is moving into Lake County and actually going to expand here. That's really exciting to me because in our service area already, they've been working with at-risk youth for years. In fact, we just had their 10-year celebration. I just learned their founder grew up in Lake County. So Letitia Hankey grew up here and knows Jessica Peiska really well. They went to school together. So programs like that mean a lot to us. And so this is a program we work with where kids build a kit car. It's an electric car, and they build it from scratch. And at the end of the year, they have a street legal vehicle they can drive on the road. This builds confidence. If you're in high school and you build a car and you can drive it on the road at the end of the year, it's pretty cool. So I love dropping into that class as well. So I want to talk about the process for this. So first, Lake County, Clear Lake, and Lakeport would need to vote. Those votes are planned for October already. There's some tentative dates, but they still have to be confirmed. So the tentative dates are that Clear Lake tells us they're planning on voting October 2nd. Lakeport and the county tell us they're planning to vote on October 21. County in the morning, Lakeport in the evening. And what's been offered is the same process that Mendocino County had when they joined us, which is the county would get 1 seat on our board, and then the 2 cities would share 1 seat on the board. And then if that comes to pass, then we would start doing a lot more community outreach, beginning with a lighter touch in 2026, and then really ramping up in 2027. And the reason it's so long is the California Public Utilities Commission makes us wait more than a year after a vote is made before we can start service. It's like a waiting period. It's kind of annoying, but it's California, so, you know. So then you can make that choice about staying with us or switching back to PG&E. Just a couple more here. I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to brag too much about how much we can save on your bill. This is going to show that graphically. So over our lifetime, we've saved between, in our first year, 4.6%, 6.5%, 1.5, 0.9, 2.9, 3.3, and then we were more expensive for 2 years, almost 2 years, by 2.8 and 5%. We were the same price this year, and then last year we had our best year where we had 7% savings on the total bill. This year it's been a mixed bag. We started out the first 2/3 of the year with a 7% savings. We've had to go to pretty close, it's about a 0.5% savings right now today. What I'm trying to show you is there's no guarantee of cost savings, and even in good years, it's small savings. Most of the time, we can probably save money on your bill. The biggest value, though, is community investment, scholarships, advocacy, all that other kind of accelerating investments in renewables, having better customer service. We've got a great call center where people will spend a whole hour with you figuring out how to cut your bill. So I just want to emphasize, like, this is not about cutting costs by a large amount. We don't have a profit. There's no shareholders. We're a government entity. So that's a full disclosure kind of slide. The last real substantive slide I want to share is we have a real commitment on our team to lower the price tag of the future of energy. And this is a very long game for us. Today, California is headed toward a really serious crisis. We have a very heavy focus on renewable energy in California, but we have really missed the boat on how to shut down paying for the fossil power sources, which means we're paying for both. And let me illustrate that. In the winter, we very often in California have many days in a row where there's not a lot of sun and not a lot of wind, and the batteries are empty, which means the grid is reliant heavily on natural gas and nuclear, almost exclusively. And what that means is you can't shut down any of those power plants ever until you solve that problem. And if you can't shut them down, they have to be fully staffed, fully repaired, fully functional, which means you're paying almost full cost. The only thing you're not paying for is fuel, right? So you're burning less fuel, but you're paying all that money. We're already way down that road. So we already pay like 40+% of dollars to natural gas-fired power plants, even though we only use them like 8% of the time. So that's messed up, and it's gonna get worse. So what we've identified is a need to fix that and actually close those plants and stop paying them. And so about 5 years ago, we started shopping around for how to do that. And 4 years ago, we landed on what we think is one of the 3 or 4 solutions. And that's newer technology around geothermal. This is not what is in your backyard. So we can't copy what Calpine did. We can't use that much land. There isn't that much more water. There isn't that kind of opportunity in the future. But what we're learning is out of Germany, out of Iceland, out of Italy, out of Utah, we're learning there are technologies now that allow us to use geothermal with a vastly smaller footprint, no flow tubes at all on the surface, recirculate the water in a closed loop. And we're learning that even though that does cost a little more at the front end, it's gonna allow us to actually shut down our reliance on fossil fuel power plants. And so we made that commitment 4 years ago. We've staffed up. We now have a reservoir engineer, a transmission planner. We've got a communications and a community engagement team around this. And so we're committed to doing this in Sonoma and Mendocino County already. And so what's in front of the Lake County supervisors and the 2 cities are an opportunity to join that. And it's so important to us that our board said, if you don't want to support geothermal, we should all pause, because this is so critical to what we think the future has that we should take a pause and time out and have a second conversation before we consider starting. So, so this is really a big deal for our board. And then the last slide I got is just a timeline, just in case you wanted to show up to further meetings. September 30th at the Lake County Board of Supervisors chambers, we have that joint meeting. I think that's kind of the big deal meeting, because that's where a lot of the questions are going to come out. I'm guessing the voting meetings are going to be important, but maybe somewhat less important than this meeting, because there's going to be a bigger discussion, I'm thinking, here. And then just some expectations if things go forward. So I'll turn it over to the committee at this point, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, if you have questions, probably at the microphone, that way everybody can hear online.
Tom Lacey, does the board have any questions before you open it to the public, or are we going to go?
I don't know.
Okay. So again, Mr. Seeger, we're kind of met 3 or 4 times. I've seen this presentation. And again, I want to thank you for bringing this to Cobb. If you recall, back in the spring, I was super excited that this was happening, and I saw it was a great opportunity because it was, in my head, I was in the mindset of anything but PG&E type of conversation, right? I think that what we're hearing is a lot of really interesting stuff as a consumer. So the analogy I like to use is that if you went into like an AT&T store or a Verizon store and you say, I'd like to change my service provider, they would tell you what your bill would look like. They would tell you all the different features and options you might have, you know, like family plans and data roaming and things like that. They're a telecommunications provider. Snow Clean Power is an electrical provider. When you sign that bill in a telecommunications, or when you sign the agreement, with a few clicks of the mouse and a couple taps on the keyboard, you are now shifted over to the new company. And that's going to be similar to what happens with PG&E. If we vote to go for that, or if our boards and councils vote to go for it, with a few clicks of the mouse and keyboard, it's an accounting activity. No one would ever know that, because you would still get a PG&E bill, would just have a different line item on it. That's all well and good. I have a lot of support for that personally. But the thing that I think needs more conversation is the geozones. Because if you use that same analogy, if you signed on with AT&T or Verizon, you would never in your wildest dream think that you would have a cell tower at the end of your block, okay? But we have 2 different conversations going on. We have a consumer conversation about lowering your bill and getting your electricity, and we have an infrastructure conversation. Where are we going to put power plants? The geozone for that were in the earlier maps that were shown, they show basically the entire western side of Lake County and the southern part of Lake County being potentially in the geozone. That's a lot of people. That's maybe half or more of the population of Lake County. I think that deserves a second conversation. And in fact, when this whole process started this year, geozones were supposed to be off the table for determining if it was feasible for us to join. And then, as Mr. Seifer pointed out, when the feasibility study came out, it says we might want to consider requiring Lake County join the geozones. And in that meeting, SCP's board says it won't be a should, it will be a shall. So things have changed from what we agreed to. I really think it should be 2 separate conversations. It's not that we're against geothermal. We have geothermal everywhere. And this is Cobb, obviously, has a long history with geothermal. It's just that we're not getting the discussion that we deserve. What do these plants look like? What are the risks? How big are they? Where are they going to go? What is the impact? You know, seismic activity. You know, is it a deep well? Is it a shallow well? Is it a high temp? Is it a low temp? There's a lot of new technology coming out, as Mr. Seifer pointed out, but it's not yet what I would call ready for prime time. So I'll just defer to the rest of the crowd, but that's my concern. Thank you.
This may be getting into the weeds a little too much, but how would this affect home solar, people who already have home solar, avoid any relationships with PG&E?
Okay to answer. So folks who have solar today are not impacted by this transition because they stay on the same solar rate they're on now when they transition. And so that's the good part. The sad part is we don't fix any of those problems either. So we don't create any new ones, but we don't fix anything because our solar program and PG&E's is very, very similar. So we don't improve on what PG&E's doing with solar. So You're not going to get out of PG&E by transitioning to Sonoma Clean Power. They will still be involved in making sure that you have a grid connection, making sure that you get your bill, and choosing when to turn on and off your power for safety. So apologies that we didn't solve the solar problem, but at least anybody who's on older solar rates that are more lucrative, they get to keep those.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. We have someone who's asking the question via text because he couldn't be. But that question has been answered. I have my own question. So this is more general because you're talking about geothermal and I do have the similar concerns about where all of that would show up. And so I was wondering what SCP has in terms of incorporating even newer technologies, because I've been noticing, as I've been following the industry, that there's even now types of technology that don't involve moving parts and that are much less destructive to bird life, for example. I know it's going to be a while before those things come online, but does SCP have a plan for, taking a look at even newer and more efficient technologies?
Yes, thank you. So we are controlled by our community, which means just you asking that question is a way of sparking our team to pay attention. And so the way things get elevated to investments, staffing, and key decisions is it starts in a room like this. It goes typically to our community advisory committee, much like this group here, and they make an advice to our board, and our board makes a decision. And so you're asking a pretty general question about new technologies. We're very hungry to learn how to do things affordably and cleanly in ways that protect community interest. And that is a big challenge in the power sector. I think anybody in this room who's ever spent any time in that sector knows, we're still coming out of coal and gas industry paradigm, even now. And the fact that the solar revolution was so successful, it happened so quickly that we kind of lost track of this fact that solar only produces when the sun shines. And so we thought a Band-Aid of batteries was going to solve that problem. And so we built, literally California built tens of thousands of megawatts of batteries just in the last 3 years, in a huge rush, to the point where batteries now are massively devalued and not very useful anymore. It was so rapid. We're looking at pumping water from one tank to another and letting it drain down to produce energy as a battery with no lithium in it. We're looking at how do you use pyrolytic biomass, for example, in a highly controlled environment so that you can actually produce energy and support some of the forest initiatives. Conceptually, we're not investing in that yet because we have concerns. We're looking at a form of geothermal energy that is called advanced closed loop as opposed to EGS, and that's something that now has an operating unit in Germany. One operating unit in the whole world, but what's very interesting is it's a hard rock closed loop, so there's no fracking required, and there's no high temperature differential between the injection and the collection, which means there's very low seismic risk. I'm very excited about it, but there's one operating facility in the whole world. So we're actively researching that, studying it. We have a signed partnership agreement with that company. It's called Ever out of Canada. And so I think the best way I can respond is I am super excited about new technologies that have potential, but we also have to make sure that whatever we actually build is affordable. And so we do a lot of very small scale experiments to try to learn and study. But whenever we scale it up, it's got to make sense to the ratepayer. And so that's kind of our litmus test. So we do a ton of $10,000 to $100,000 experiments, but when we're spending $100 million, it better make sense. So, yeah.
Oh, I just have a comment. You may be familiar with and you probably are, the Planet of the Humans. You're probably familiar with that video. I think you can watch it on YouTube, and it really explains a lot of perhaps downsides of alternative power. And I'm not taking positions on it at all. I think it's just worth taking a look at. That's all, because like I just said, it's some of the downsides that you can, another point of view, just the Planet of the Humans. You might check it out, draw your own conclusions.
I have a follow-on question. I was on the geozone side. I want to talk more about the being consumer side, which is what excited me originally about Sonoma Clean Power. And I was wondering if you might be able to clarify a couple things. One is that I think on the website it says for those of us that have solar and sell power back to PG&E, Sonoma Clean Power offers like a penny more per kilowatt. Did I understand that correctly? Is that one of the things
that program got retired, and so our compensation for solar is so close to PG&E as you can say it's the same.
Okay.
And for the really minor details, I can bring our team in. One thing I can share is we spend a huge amount of time helping people, and I know we had a chat out in the parking lot. So I know you're very plugged into this, but for people who aren't.
No pun intended.
we spend a huge amount of time with customers helping them get value out of their solar. And that runs a big gamut. So one is, if you got an electric car, for God's sake, stop charging it at night. We all told you to do it at night a decade ago and 5 years ago. That's 100% fossil fuel. It's more expensive. It's not good for reliability. If you can charge, especially if you've got solar on your rooftop, if you can charge between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., it's the golden ticket, because you're getting more value from your own solar. You're also investing in supporting your neighbors who have solar, because you're increasing the value of solar power. It's all renewable. There's no fossil energy from 11 to 3 most days, and it tends to be cheaper. So like we're trying to get those kind of lessons out and make sure people have them. And I know you already know that, so sorry to interrupt. I hope I didn't take away from this time.
No, we do need to have a moment of silence for you not having that program, because I'm really going to miss that. The other thing is statewide, PG&E has become notorious for fighting, solar programs and making it more and more difficult, more and more onerous for people to have distributed solar. So I was wondering if you could comment on a couple things. One are programs that you have to perhaps lower the upfront cost, which is usually the barrier for people to get distributed solar, and then also things like behind-the-meter microgrids and other types of technologies to help communities, because one of the things that Lake County really is suffering from is economically, a lot of businesses just can't afford the electricity. They have the customers, they have the location, they have the product, but they just can't afford the bill. And so they have to shut down or they have to scale back. So if you could perhaps comment on that.
Thank you. Yes, of course. So the first thing we did when we looked at solar, and this was in 2015, was try to figure out the big scale solution as opposed to a subsidy. Subsidies are expensive and they're controversial, because if I'm going to provide a subsidy to a person buying solar, I have to justify it to the person I'm taking the money from and say, how am I taking your money and giving it to someone else, right? So the first thing we started in 2015 was, how do we solve the bigger problem? And we started to look at things like, if I can increase the amount of energy we're using during peak solar hours and decrease it in non-solar hours, then I'm creating a whole marketplace for solar where there's no subsidy required. So what we started to do in 2015 was say, how can we shift power from nighttime to middle of the day? And the first thing we identified was this novel thing that initially it was Nissan and then it was Tesla, was an electric car. It was like, hey, they're using a ton of power. Not very many of them back then, but there were a few. So we started to look at, can we have more workplace EV charging, daytime electric vehicle charging? Because if you do that, you don't have to subsidize solar because it stays valuable. The problem with solar today is we didn't work on those other problems, those social problems. So now when you sell solar power into the grid at noon, it's often worth zero. Like the compensation I get for putting energy onto the grid at noon in May is often actually a negative number. The grid operators say, you have to pay us to put power on the grid because we have to somehow get it to Arizona. I'm done with that. I'm not paying more of that kind of stuff. It's a losing game. And so what I want to do is say, that's not solar's problem. That's a planning problem. We didn't fix the plan. And so solar is fantastic. And by the way, if anybody hasn't looked into this, solar is like vastly cheaper than coal power, but only in the middle of the day and only when the sun shines. So it's a very specific kind of power. So what we're trying to do is say, how do we shift those loads? So that's been our big game. We have stood up a capital projects division now where we're working with tribes, most significantly right now on microgrids and trying to figure out, we have customers today in our service area that have more than 25 days of power outages in a year. That's third world conditions. That's not okay. And so what we're trying to do is figure out how do we start with the most egregious, the worst kind of problems and start fixing those. If anybody doesn't know, up in Humboldt County, there's a pretty spectacular program at the Schatz Energy Research Facility up there where they have now completed, they don't just talk about microgrids, a lot of people talk, but they've completed 4 or 5 of them already that are up and running, and they're highly functional, they work really well. So we're starting to learn from them. We're starting to figure out, like, how do they get it right? How do they make it cost effective? And how do they actually get them to the finish line? Because it's pretty easy to put stuff on paper. It's a lot harder to actually get them done. So we're in that game now. We have that division up and running. We now have some early stage partnership that we're working on. Another partnership that group is working on is with cattle ranching. So cattle ranching has a need for shade. I didn't know this because I'm not a cattle rancher, but apparently cows for both beef and milk production, they benefit when there's shade. And so what we're learning is if you put up solar canopies with the right kind of posts so the cows can't knock them over, then you can actually share land between ranching and solar production. And so that's an example of another initiative that we're pursuing right now. So those are just a couple, but there's more that we can go into, but I don't want to take the whole night. So
Thank you.
I have a question. So since PG&E still maintains all the lines, the poles, the services, sends you a bill, do you guys lease from PG&E?
So that's effectively what happens. But the way it works is that our customers are still customers of PG&E, so they still pay PG&E for that service. So it's not that we have a direct lease, it's more that our customers are paying for that service, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't see PG&E losing money, from their end. So is there a worry that if you guys keep expanding, they're just going to keep bumping up everything to, is there some sort of, I'm asking, is there like a limit to what they can go up? Like that would be really nice instead of these 20-30% hikes they're requiring.
I have good news, but mostly bad news.
Yeah.
The good news is There's now 25 of us operating around all California. We've never seen any of the utilities cut their service level because we started. So the service level in Sonoma and Mendocino is the same as it was before we started. All the good and all the bad. The bad news is we have no control over PG&E's rates directly at all. So we fight like hell. We go to the San Francisco and we go to the California Public Utilities Commission and we say, you shouldn't increase your price this much. How we've leveled up a little on that is we've gotten better at figuring out the right kind of ways of challenging a rate increase. So we make them show their math. We're like, all right, show us why you need an extra $1 billion. Like, prove it. And then we go through line by line and we check it. And sometimes we find errors. And we're like, all right, you should fix that and that and that and that. So I don't want to sugarcoat this. Like, we don't fix PG&E's rate problem. Their rates have gone up a lot in the last 5 years in particular, but even since the 80s, since my career started. So we're not the whole fix. We're just a small part.
Thanks. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Margot Kambara. Mr. Sievert, thank you so much for your presentation and spending quality time with the Cobb Area Council. I have a couple of comments about more financial nature and also on technology. CCAs, community choice aggregators, are so positive. It's really good for consumers. Our government, local governments, taking proactive measures on energy, that's positive too, and pardon the pun. But if we look at the financial impacts of joining Sonoma Clean Power, I go back to what our Lake County Supervisor Bruno Sabatier observed, and he said, this is a decades-long commitment that we will make to Sonoma Clean Power. And during that time, we know technology will change. Just look how quickly the cell phone, the mobile phone, the smartphone has become ingrained in our everyday lives. So we don't know what kind of technological changes are in our future in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So that's a concern. We're going to be locked into that commitment. Now, as individual energy consumers, yeah, we can opt out, but the county isn't beyond the hook, and that hook is millions of dollars. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Also, while we're in this agreement, technology and time march on. Right now, we don't know what kind of technology is the solution for Lake County, specifically for the geozones. That's a little worrying. I'm not very comfortable being the guinea pig. I'd feel a lot better if we had proof of concept and we were given that proof of concept and the data to take a look at that. I appreciate the sense of adventure to invite Lake County to be a partner with Sonoma Clean Power to find solutions together, but gosh, I think the stakes are a little too high at this point for Lake County to jump in with both feet and say, we're in, especially with the geozones not very well defined. Thank you.
I'll bring up something, I think it's probably too technical for tonight, but something to consider. I was a PG&E power plant operator for 16 years, and as far as I know, the system operates on frequency, right? You want to keep it at 60 cycles, and that's really the key. So if you bring on another power plant, another one has to back down. And so I think you still need fossil fuel power plants still spinning reserve. They still need to be running and probably more than the other plants to keep adjusting. So you keep that 60 cycles because that's what adjusts. So when you see the cycles start to go up, a power plant's got to back down somewhere. Or if it starts to go too high, it has to back down. If it starts to go too low, a power plant has to start up somewhere. And so as far as these other plants, I think some of them are still going to have to be running So exactly, that's not necessarily good or bad, but it's not, but it gets pretty complicated, and I just thought I'd point that out. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you for that presentation. We're
Thank
excited
you
to
all.
see where it
I
goes.
appreciate it, yeah.
Okay, so we'll jump to supervisor's comments, but Supervisor Pyska is not here, so we'll wait till next month when she's around.
Just making sure she's not online.
Oh, is she online?
Okay. No worries.
Perfect. All right, that brings us to the fire season update by Chief Duncan.
Yeah, I just want to start off by giving a thank you to Supervisor Pyska, Elliot, Magdalena for putting on an amazing Valley Fire event that was spectacular, very heartfelt, and thank you for all your work with that. That was awesome. On the fire season side, we are entering our most dangerous time of the season, which is we are at our peak dryness. We typically get our wind events this time of year, and lightning is predicted tonight, and that is another thing that comes this time of year. So well, hopefully it keeps wet lightning, which is good, but we're just not out of burn season yet. So the burn ban is still in effect, no residential burning, and just we'll hold our breath till we get some weather.
Sounds good. Then I don't know, do we have a treasurer's report?
I do not.
So that's another item. We'll wait till next month when Chris is back. And I am
Do you want Chuck? Do you want to walk up to the microphone, Tom?
Just a question, Chief. I know there was a discussion about moving the burn day from the traditional burn day from November 15th to November 1st. Is that I can't remember if that's been approved or?
So it has not been approved. It went in the package for air quality.
Gotcha.
So air quality had changes to the burn season and their permits and their permit costs.
Okay.
So
All right.
that is coming. I think it goes back before the board for another reading before it's finalized. But
And the readings before November, do you think? Do you know?
yes, the new system should be in place before that. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, they're improving their portal for online burn permits as we speak. So hopefully that facilitates that.
And our next item is report action from special meeting held last Wednesday. And I believe that was for the September 12th Valley Fire Community Gathering. I'm unfamiliar with what occurred, so
There was just an approval to pay for light refreshments for the Valley Fire community gathering at the Little Red Schoolhouse. The motion was by Chris to approve, and then not to exceed $1,500 for the barbecue.
it sounds like it was a great event, and I'm glad that was passed last week. All right, we'll move on to our committee reports. We'll start with Firewise Communities. Any updates or news?
So I'm Magdalena Valderrama. I happen to be the one of two community regional coordinators for the Firewise in Lake County. And we had a bunch of Cobb Firewise communities take on one booth at the Middletown commemoration for the Valley Fire. So we had Anderson Springs, Salmina Tabee, Siegler Springs, and Loch Lomond were all represented there. And there were over 100 people at that event. And then we're now getting ready for recertification. The deadlines that we're asking folks to submit their recording sheets is October 15th to give us time to collate all of the hours, and then that will be reported as in aggregate in November. And then depending on how long it takes the NFPA and CAL FIRE to review those applications for recertification and the action plans. We'll probably be here in December, and then any announcements will be shown on the interactive NFPA map site in April. That's just the way the timeline works. So if anybody is having trouble with their insurance agent asking for proof of whether you live in a particular area or not, you can contact me directly, magdalenavh@sscra.org, and I can point you to your Firewise community leader so that you can get the information that your agent might need. That's all I have.
Thank you, Magdalena. Is there anybody online?
Just know that I think Elliot and Magdalena is
Yeah, this is Mel's Communications Committee report. He said the last 2 months have been busy ones. A couple of yellow alerts went out for situational awareness for fires bordering the Bottle Rock neighborhood. 9 Cobb AlertNet members attended a GMRS class offered by the Lake County Community Organizations Active in Disaster, or COAD. This afternoon workshop was presented by North Bay Communication Cooperative, which is a Sonoma group that has put up 22 GMRS repeaters throughout their county. We shared our Cobb AlertNet structure. They were surprised the county had as much going on and repeaters in place. So it was a bit basic for us regulars, but it was good to see how it was done. The COAD will be getting together various agencies, including us, in November for a, quote, tabletop exercise, which is face-to-face disaster simulation. More details as we know them. We had a table full of volunteers and steady stream of booth visitors at the Cobbler Festival. A handful of radios sold, lots of prizes were won on air, and a page of new contact made. It was followed by a Loch Lomond Firewise meeting that sold out all our remaining little radios, over 20 of them. We have since restocked. If you want to get a pair of radios, email at cobbalertnet@gmail.com. John, Hoburg 7, and Mel, Siegler 1, were interviewed on KPFZ to explain the radio network. Look for that to be posted on cobbalert.net soon.
Thank you, Elliot. Then do you want to jump into the Forest Health
And
Committee?
as far as the Forest Committee, as I think we've announced here, after being in limbo for 6 or 7 months, the USDA has unfrozen our Community Wildfire Protection Plan grant. So we are shifting back into gear. We're going to have the next meeting of the Cobb Area Council Forest Steward Committee back on its regular rotation, which is the last Friday of every month. So it'll be I think it's the 28th at the Loch Lomond Fire Station at 4 o'clock. There will be a Zoom link available if you want to. Now, thanks to Chief Duncan, there's a good Wi-Fi connection at the Loch Lomond Fire Station, so I think we'll have a more reliable Zoom connection there. You can email me at ElliotH, ELIOTH, at sscra.org if you want that Zoom link. Otherwise, just come on down to the Loch Lomond Fire Station, 4 o'clock on the last Friday of the month. Yeah, well, Tom is asking if our new Community Wildfire Protection Plan will be a living document. And we've got a lot of design issues to think about, how we're going to put it up on the website. We've got a geographic information system to set up. We're also going to be talking about how we actually got a little supplemental grant to support our, what we're calling our citizen science evaluation team, where we're going to try and put together a team of a dozen or so local residents to actually go out. The satellites may tell us one thing, but we want to go and see what's actually on the ground. So there's a lot of different moving parts to this plan, Tom, that we'll be talking about at the meeting. This will be the CWPP. It's the same. It is. Forest Health Committee is one of the groups that will be major support to put together the Community Wildfire Protection Plan.
All right.
It's complicated.
All right, thank you, Elliot. Economic Development Committee, again, that falls in Chris's court, so we'll push it to next month. And then last piece we had here was the Cobbler Fest. We hope everybody got to attend in August. It seems to be growing and growing every year. Was a little warm this year, but some things you can't control. And I imagine that organization will, do you have anything to say, Joe? Oh, sorry. No. I imagine that organization will start revamping in a couple months. I'm sure they need a little break. So again, hopefully everyone got to make it, and thank you to everybody that was supporting that and putting in the hours before, during, and after to make that all happen for our community.
Looking forward to a report from that.
Yeah. And that's it for this meeting. We'll call it at 7:39 tonight, and our next meeting is October 16th at 6:30 here at Little Red. So, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.